Horndean, a quiet town, the kind where everyone knew everyone. Then, one night, everything changed. It was supposed to be a normal night, full of teenage fun and that feeling of being invincible that comes with youth. But instead, tragedy struck, stealing a young life and leaving a gaping hole in the community.
First case tonight is one that made headline news in August. Guests at a wedding party in Horndean in Hampshire discovered the body of 15-year-old schoolgirl Helen Gorry in the grounds of Merchiston Hall Community Centre, only minutes from where she lived. Helen was associated.
Hey guys! Welcome back to your go-to place of dark and captivating true crime stories. We're here at Crimeco to unearth the mysteries that haunt us all, bringing you the stories that'll leave you intrigued. If you dig our content, hit that subscribe button and smash that like button. It helps us keep bringing the chills. Now, grab a drink, snuggle up, and get ready to crack open another crazy case with your favorite crew. Alright then, let's dive in. Horndean was a picture-perfect town. Nestled in Hampshire, it had winding streets, friendly neighbors, and a community center called Merchiston Hall where everyone came together. It was the kind of place where you felt safe leaving your doors unlocked. No one ever imagined something terrible happening here. This story centers around Merchiston Hall, but instead of happy events, it became a scene of tragedy. A young girl named Helen Gorry, full of life and potential, lost her life here. She was only 15, and her death left a scar on the whole town. It all started on a warm summer night, July 31st, 1992. Helen was at home with her stepbrother Jamie. Around 11:30 p.m., she said goodnight, went upstairs, then came back down in her pajamas under her regular clothes. She told Jamie she'd only be a few minutes, and then disappeared into the night. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. The police jumped into action the moment Helen went missing. It wasn't long before they started finding creepy clues that something terrible had happened. People remembered seeing a girl who looked just like Helen around Merchiston Hall that night. Then, the worst news hit. The next morning, they found Helen's body near the community center, laid out on a path just steps away. It was awful. Her clothes were messed up, and they had strangled her with her own clothes. Her life, full of potential, was stolen in a cruel attack that made no sense. The whole town was reeling. Helen's mom, Sheila, spoke at a press conference, heartbroken. She cried as she called Helen a sweet girl who loved life. Horndean wasn't a peaceful place anymore. Now it was filled with fear, and everyone desperately wanted to know who did this. The police dug deeper into Helen's case, and a huge clue jumped out at them from her diary. On the night she disappeared, she wrote, "John called. The guy I met yesterday. He wants me to go for a ride with him and his friends." This John turned out to be a 21-year-old named John Corcoran. The cops looked into him right away, and things didn't look good. Corcoran wasn't exactly Mr. Perfect. He cruised around town in a beat-up Ford Escort, handing out weird business cards and looking for young girls. It turned out Helen had actually bumped into Corcoran the night before she vanished. He was out hunting again, and they somehow ended up talking. The creep convinced her to meet him again the next day. The more the police investigated, the more disturbing the picture got. It seemed like this wasn't Corcoran's first rodeo. Back in 1990, there was a report of him forcing himself on a 14-year-old girl. He clearly preyed on young women, using lies and pressure to get what he wanted. Things weren't looking good for Corcoran. People remembered seeing him around the night Helen disappeared. And he even had scratches on his arms, maybe Helen fought back harder than he expected. The evidence was piling up, and it all pointed to John Corcoran. The more the police dug into John Corcoran, the clearer it became what happened to Helen. On that awful night, Helen, trusting and full of life, most likely fell for John's lies and met him wherever they agreed. Witnesses even saw a young woman who looked exactly like Helen waiting near Merchistown Hall, maybe even getting into a car that looked just like John's beat-up Ford. Then, things went terribly wrong. The police believed John wanted something horrible from Helen, something she definitely didn't want. When she said no, John snapped. He went from charming creep to violent monster, attacking poor Helen. The next morning, the police found Helen's body near the community center. She was partly undressed, and they had used her own clothes to strangle her. It was a shocking and brutal crime that left the whole town numb. With all the evidence stacked against him, John Corcoran became the main suspect in Helen's murder. The community wanted justice for Helen, and the police were determined to get it. As the investigation into the tragic murder of Helen Gorey unfolded, the case against John Corcoran grew more and more convincing. In 1999, almost 7 years after this terrible crime, Corcoran faced trial, charged not only with Helen's murder, but also with the assault of a 14-year-old girl in 1990. Inside the courtroom, the proceedings painted a chilling picture of a man consumed by twisted desires and a complete disregard for the lives of innocent young women. The prosecution presented a strong case, highlighting Corcoran's history of predatory behavior and his habit of targeting vulnerable teenagers. A crucial piece of evidence that emerged during the trial was the discovery of Helen's artificial fingernails at the crime scene. These small but significant clues revealed the desperate struggle that had taken place as the young girl fought against her merciless attacker, fighting for her life. Furthermore, a witness who had previously provided Corcoran with an alibi came forward and admitted to lying to the authorities. This revelation dealt a severe blow to Corcoran's defense, completely eroding any credibility he may have had. As the trial approached its climax, the judge's words carried a weighty finality. Speaking directly to Corcoran, he said, "There is no doubt in my mind that you possess a strong streak of arrogance in your character. On that fateful night in 1992, you were determined to force yourself upon that 15-year-old girl, regardless of her wishes. She resisted and fought back, and you took her life by strangling her." With those words, Corcoran's fate was sealed. He was declared guilty of Helen's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Although it couldn't fully heal the wounds inflicted on the family and community, it provided a measure of justice for the loss of a vibrant young life. Then, a major twist. Just when everyone thought John Corcoran was going to pay for killing Helen Gorey, his conviction got thrown out in 2003. Apparently, the judge messed up explaining things to the jury, a technicality that let a murderer walk free. This news hit Horndean like a punch in the gut. People were heartbroken and angry all over again. For Helen's family, it felt like they were kicked when they were already down. The whole thing showed them just how messy the justice system can be, full of confusing rules and loopholes. Even though Corcoran was out, the police insisted they weren't going to look into the case any further, and they weren't chasing any new suspects. This didn't exactly comfort the folks who saw the evidence against him. Despite this setback, Helen wasn't forgotten. Her bright spirit lived on in Horndean's memory. Her story, a story of a young life cut way too short, stayed with people who craved answers and closure for this terrible crime. Years later, Helen's case got back into the spotlight. A reporter named Mark Williams Thomas looked into it for his crime documentary series. They even checked to see if a serial killer named Peter Tobin might be involved, but in the end, there wasn't a connection. Even though years passed, the pain of Helen's murder never truly healed. It was a constant reminder of a young life stolen too soon. But Helen's story was also about the strength of the human spirit and a community that wouldn't let her be forgotten. The town of Horndean was reeling, angry, confused, but determined to make sure something like this never happened again. Helen's story became a rallying cry, a call for everyone to work together to keep their kids safe. The legal case might have been over, but for those who knew and loved Helen, the search for answers and closure never stopped. Her family, friends, and the whole town wouldn't let her memory fade. They kept her spirit alive with memorials and by living their lives in a way that honored her. Helen's case became a well-known true crime story, a scary reminder that bad things can happen and that finding the truth matters, even when it's hard. Her story spread beyond Horndean, a message about how precious life is and how cruel people can be. But even in the face of such a terrible loss, the people of Horndean found comfort knowing that Helen's spirit would always be a part of their town. Even though she was gone, the way she touched their lives would never be forgotten. Her story is a testament to the power of love, hope, and the never-give-up spirit that lives inside all of us. Through memorials, candlelight services, and acts of kindness, Helen's memory lives on. Her story reminds us to cherish every moment we have and to fight for what's right, no matter how difficult it seems. Helen's murder tore a hole right through the heart of Horndean. This young, full-of-life girl was gone way too soon, and it left everyone hurting. The court case might have been over, but for those who knew Helen, the questions wouldn't stop. They just wanted some answers, some peace. But in the face of this awful thing, Horndean pulled together. They wouldn't let Helen be forgotten. They held memorials, lit candles in her memory, and even volunteered to make their town safer for everyone. Helen's story became a battle cry, a call to make sure something like this never happened again. News of Helen spread beyond Horndean too. Her case became a reminder of how precious life is and how quickly it can be taken away. But it was also a story of hope. Even though something terrible happened, Helen's spirit lived on. Her memory showed how strong people can be, how much love can last, and how even one life can make a big difference. Years later, Horndean was still healing, but they were stronger for it. They were a closer community, more determined to create a kind and safe world. Helen's story became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, we can find the strength to go on, to cherish each other, and to never give up on what's right. Even though Helen was gone, her light would forever shine in the hearts of those who loved her. All right, guys, before you dash off into the night, don't forget to hit that like button. It lets us know you're digging the content, and that keeps the creepy cases coming your way. While you're at it, smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. You don't want to miss our next dive into the mysterious unknown. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you on the flip side for another mind-blowing case. Until then, stay curious.